Well, hello again, everyone. This is Zai from Zai by Design and CG Boss with a new product for you guys, UltraShaders Egyptian fabrics. It's the same as we did with our business shader fabrics. It's the same kind of setup where you have multiple types of fabrics, and you can put color overlays or plain overlays and do tone on tone and accents and stuff like that. So I was going to do a quick overview for you. We're not going to go super in depth because we went in depth with our last videos, and you can go to the UltraShaders business fabrics page and see how to do creating your own matte zones and get kind of really in depth with using these types of shaders. So we're just going to do a quick overview here for you on what's included with this package. So I'm going to go through the promos with you real quick so you can see. Basically, it's a whole set of Egyptian shaders. It's here on her dress and on the trim and on her shoulder piece here and on his wrap right here in his sash, also on his the pharaoh headpiece. So you can really mix things up. These are the ones that we kind of used for this section. You can see that this type of style was done on these pillows in a different color. This one's from her dress. This one is on his headscarf. So there's a whole bunch of mix and match that you can do. So before we get started on that, I'm going to show you how we research these so that you can get a little more authenticity into your projects. We went through and the Egyptians use sort of a limited color palette. Not so many purples and not so many pastels. They're very striking, strong colors. And we kind of did some research here and pulled some actual colors off of some actual Egyptian artifacts or photos of them. Obviously, we can't go back in time, but we got close as we could. You can see here we pulled some off some actual ruins, some actual jewelry, some research that had been done on what they actually used or the dyes that were available for them. This here is some Tyrian purple, where it's made by different types of mollusks. The different mollusk you get to get a different kind of purple. So we've done quite a bit of research to give you kind of a limited palette, but that will help you be a little more authentic in your color choices. The other thing we did was narrow it down to some of the actual names that they used and what they've called them. We've got the traditional Egyptian blue, a range of blues, and some of that Nile green that they've got. It's kind of an elusive color. A little bit of dark and lighter colors for you to mix up, and some white and silver, and we also have the full black and full white for you to use. And we've kind of limited it for you to what they actually use, so you can feel free to kind of throw things together and not worry that you're going outside of the range that makes it kind of look authentic. So that kind of is built into the setup. Now let's go back and take a look at the promos real quick. Like I said, this was our main promo, which we've got you know, things applied to her dress and the pillows. Here we've got an overview of everything comes in a medium base to start with. We've got a raw silk, which is kind of a Dupioni silk, which has got a little bit of kind of rustic lines to it. It's a raw silk, not a high-end silk. And also a nice tight linen, so you can mix or match whichever type of fabric you might want. If you're doing royalty, or if you're doing kind of some of their servants or some of the people that worked in, say, a tomb or a palace, or whether you want to do that kind of high-end Cleopatra royalty type look, you've kind of got a type of fabric for each. Every base, like the rest of the UltraShaders packages, comes in a medium base. There's a setup for a lighter and a darker, and then a full black and a full white. These three, the medium, the full black, and full white, are full shaders. The lighter and the darker just swap out the underlying map, so you can take this color up or down without disturbing your patterns that you're going to put over top of it later. And of course, it comes in both type of fabrics. All of the fabrics take this entire range of colors, and the way that they're shown for you here is that this center section is always on the light color, and then you can go towards the medium or towards the dark. So you can kind of tell where you're going beforehand, and if you take a look at your colors first, you can kind of guess which one you want to start with and load up the medium and then say, okay, I'd like to go lighter or darker, depending on where you're trying to go. You can see here we've used it on her dress, on her sash. We've even used a preset that we've got for a cloth of gold on her little tie that's on her belt. We've also used that on this cutout on the necklace as well, which kind of ties everything together. It's helpful for stuff that's not just clothes. We've also used a lot of outfits in these promos to show you can use modern day outfits and kind of kit bash them into being Egyptian. Here's another one here where we've used the Daz Wise Wizard outfit. This is the wizard under tunic. This is his kind of over tunic vest type of thing, which we've combined with the rest of the stuff that was available to make some new outfits. So you're not stuck with just the older outfits to turn into Egyptian outfits if you want to widen your range. Plus there's new outfits coming from Daz with this release. We also use this kind of cloth of gold shader on the armband here and also on this little piece of metal to kind of bring everything together. So you can use it on more than just clothing. In the pack, we've included a bunch of pre-done presets already ready for you to go, such as the gold and the silver. And funnily enough, the Egyptians actually used silver as more precious than gold because it was harder to get. So we've included a silver for you as well. A whole bunch of pre-done presets in the silk and also in the linen. And you can take any one of these as a starter and maybe change the pattern or change the base color, but feel free to load these first to get you started. There's no reason why you can't use one of these as a base and change it up as much as you like. Included are an entire range of color overlays, which the pattern is already colored for you. And this will show you how we built some with the, started with a medium base, we added a base color to it, and then we added a color overlay pattern, and then we colored that pattern. If you notice, the colors in this are bright. We added this color to this pattern. So this just shows you a background and a kind of a fake pattern to show you what color it goes on in. But we added this blue color over top of this pattern, and it came out like this. It kind of changed the color of the pattern. So by combining these four things, you have a completely different look. This is included as one of the presets. And that's how we built it. So it's really easy if you start with 1, 2, 3, 4. You've got something that's very different than what you might have started out with. But you've got all of these patterns to work with as bases, and you can put any color over them you like and combine them with any base color that you like. Moving on from there, here's how we kind of constructed this base wrap skirt that she's got on. Same kind of idea where you started with a light linen base. You know, chose a base color, chose an overlay color, and that's kind of that same one. Same look, only with a different overlay color, and we've added a gold accent. So any one of these patterns, you can put an entire gold accent kind of right over the top of it to give yourself a little bit of a richer look. And you also have that included in silver. So gold or silver, your choice, on or off, and you have the ability with all of the utilities to do that as well. This is the same thing, but it's not a color pattern, it's just a plain pattern. So you start with a light silk base, choose your orange, choose this pattern, and then turn your gold accent on, and you've got this kind of look. And then you can use it without a pattern, as we did up here for her top. Same thing we did here. This is just a base plus a base color, and then down here we've done a pattern on top of that to match. And it kind of will pull an outfit together so you can decide where you want more detail or less detail and pull together an outfit. And like I said, kit bashing stuff together is actually a lot of fun this way because you can make your outfits look completely different. Same thing here. We've got the entire range of plain fabrics. Now these aren't colored, they're one color. And you can see how this is the basic way that they start out. It's just a single color on plain. And you can see once you add a base color and an overlay color, you can create quite a bunch of different looks with them, with a tone on tone or a light and a dark or whatever you try to put together with your color choices. And then if that's not enough for you, you can move over here to the same thing by adding the gold or silver, turning it on top of that. And it's not a color pattern, but it's still a multicolor pattern if you want to build it. So you build it as fancy or as tone on tone as you like, as subtle or as fancy as you like. And of course, last we have all of these utilities for you guys. You can make things sheer, you can size the patterns up and down. The grain of the fabric is separate from the size of the pattern. So you set your grain size and figure out where you want to go with that, and then set your pattern size so the pattern can get bigger or smaller and the grain stays something believable of what size the fabric might have been. And you can also shift your patterns, helps you with some seams. You can shift them up or down and shift just the pattern itself so that they don't bump up against each other depending on how your whatever piece you're using was modeled. You never know where you're going to get an awkward seam. This will help a little bit with that. And of course you can invert and revert the patterns. You might get a little bit different look doing it that way. And to wrap that up, this is just a last piece before we get started looking at it. You can see here we used a preset on the red parts of it. This is the new Catherine dress, which is just gorgeous. We're going to use that, some of it, in the piece we're about to do to show you how to apply everything. As well as this other new dress that we just started working with as well. We've combined two dresses and kind of combined the two of them with the colors. They look like they came that way. And it really ends up being something that's very unique to you. So with that said, let's get started. Take a look how to put together a quickie tone on tone or a pattern color. And before we get started, one thing I want to mention, if you want to go more in depth with the shaders, if you go to our page on DAZ, that is the business class fabric shaders, there's two videos down here below for you. This goes in depth with using the shaders like the way that we've normally set them up. And then there's also one here for how to add quick material zones if your piece of clothing or whatever you're using it on does not come with material zones or enough material zones, how you can add them sort of quickly right within DAZ if you want to adjust even more. They're available here, or if you actually go right to our channel, which is CG Boss, there's several videos on all of our products there for you guys, so you can refer back to them whenever you like, and we're not repeating ourselves on the information that we're giving out. Okay, so let's switch over to DAZ Studio here, and we'll take a look at, this is the outfit we're going to use. It is the Catherine dress, which just came out at DAZ just recently, and I've got it on my my girl here, and we're going to look at how to create kind of the same dress that was in the main promo there and how easy it is to do that. So let's get started with the cape here, because that's kind of in the way, and we're going to set it up and then turn it off and get it out of our way for working with the rest of it. So if we look, we've got it loaded and it's got no textures on it at all at this point. So let's go find this in the content library where it will be loaded for you. And yours will be in your My DAZ 3D library. Mine was actually here in my dev library. It's going to be under shader presets and UltraShaders Egyptian fabrics. And then open it up into iRay, and this is what you will see over here. The very first thing you will see is a folder called 0, and that is our full shader presets. It's got linen or silk, and it's got the entire set of fully done presets with an on and off and a remove, or an on off for your metals, and a choice of gold or silver for whatever color you want the metallic parts to be. And these are full shaders, just one click apply. You can of course use the utilities to size them up or down. So the first one we used was the dress here, and let me get the actual tool for the surface selection, and I've got the dress here, and we'll put that on because we're going to change that. So once you've got your item selected, you use the right tool, which is the surface selection. You've got the dress selected, and you come over here to either the dress or the trim, and we're going to do the dress, and you just double click to put that type or style on it. Now you can't see this in here because you need to be in iRay preview mode. You'll only see kind of the basics of the fabric. It doesn't even really give you an indication of the size. It's just the way the viewport works. And once you go into the iRay preview, you'll actually see your patterns. So while you're working with patterns, you might need to turn off your hair, turn off a couple of pieces so that your iRay preview will be faster for you. But I mean, that's how easy it is to apply these pre-done shaders, obviously. So once you've got that in there, you can make some changes to it. If you don't like this color, you can come and start making changes to it. So let's do her cape real quick. To cut off this bottom part of the cape and make sure that it's not obscuring anything, because we want kind of that Egyptian look with just this top part that she's got. So we're going to do this top section here, which is more like a shoulder piece. We don't need this full cape outfit. So first let's turn this part off so we can see what we're doing. And let's start with that. And the place to do that, if there's pieces, hopefully they've got enough material zones built in, and you don't want to use a certain part of an outfit, you can click on it and come over to your surfaces tab and figure out which one is which. It's going to light up which piece it is. You see this little yellow line, which piece it is. So that is the trim at the very top, and cloth 1 is this shoulder piece, and then cloth is this big piece, and that's the piece we don't want. So when you do that, there's a section down here called cutout opacity, and it's usually way here at the bottom. Let's see. I need to go up a little bit, and this is always hard to find. Right here. Cutout opacity, it's under emissions. I always try to remember that, and you can just turn it off right there. The easier way to find this before we do this is that this is a search. So if you just type in cut and hit enter, it'll take you right to it. And all you want to do is turn that off, turn it to 0. And now, basically, you've turned off that cape, and it looks a lot more Egyptian for a plain kind of Egyptian dress that maybe somebody like Cleopatra might wear. So now we just want to color these 2 sections that are left. So the first thing we're going to do is go over here to our silk section, and I would like to make that a nice gold like we did in the promo. So that's easy enough. It's just a double click on the cloth of gold, and it's done. Unless you want to change the size of the grain, and you might want to do a close-up to see how large or small the grain of the fabric is. That part's done. So the next step is to do this little, let's zoom in here so you can see and take a look up close at what this really looks like. Come down in here, and the necklace is laying over top of it, but we'll move that and adjust that for our final render. Okay, so we've got our cloth of gold on, and don't worry about the lighting too much right now. It might look a little off in your lighting, but it's there once it starts to resolve. So now we want to do this section right here. So that section there is going to be a blue or something that complements this dress. So let's go over here and take, say, a base color. Since the rest of it's been silk, we can start with silk as well. So that's not a full shader. We're going to come out of 0 and go into building your own, which is 1 through 4. So on 1, we're going to say, okay, which kind of fabric do we want for this base shader? Let's say silk. And we probably want to start with one of these. We know we don't want it full white or full black. We probably want a color. So we always start with this medium. These 3 are full shaders, and they give you everything is set up over here. Let's get rid of this cut so we can see the whole shader. It fills in everything. So let's start with a medium. That's what I usually do for a color. And that's going to fill in just this portion right here. And you can see it set everything, and when you roll over this, it tells you it's Egyptian silk mid. So it's a medium color to start with. I probably want this to be a little bit brighter color, so I'm going to change down here with our base map adjusters to a lighter color of silk. And all that does is change that first map, and it makes it a little bit lighter. So we're going to do that and make sure that that's in there. And then we're going to go on to number 2 and choose a color that will match the dress. I think this Irtu, I'm not sure how to pronounce that stuff, Irtu Blue, Irtu, will work because it's one of the colors that's kind of used in the base of the dress. And that's pretty much it for a plain color. You pick your style of base and you pick an overlay color, and that's it. So once that's done, you basically have the whole dress. The next thing you might want to do is carry that color downwards to this trim here on the top of the dress. And there's an easy way to do that. Once you've set it, you can right click whichever one you've chosen and copy that and just bring it right down here. And a lot of the times this cape gets in the way, so grab it somewhere else, and then you can see the pieces attached, and come to the trim and right click and paste. And so that's how quick that dress was built. It's pretty much done, except for possibly adjusting the sizes of the pattern. So if we back out here, now that we've got it, and say we want to say, I would like to have this pattern be larger or smaller, and now that it's come in, say that that's not exactly the size that we want a lot smaller flowers or larger flowers, we would come down here to the base utilities. If you want to change the size of the grain of the fabric, you may want to be closer or farther away. That's easy. Or if you want it to be sheer or see-through, you can use those. But those are the basic utilities, whether it's sheer or what size the grain is. But the one you're looking for is under patterns. And here is all of the color overlay patterns, of which this is one. You can see it comes in as a color, not just kind of black and white. They're pre-colored. And then you also have your plain patterns, which are these, which are just, they don't have any color to them. They weren't color artwork in the first place. but you can colorize them and the base color along with it. So what we're looking to do here is just resize these flowers. So we'll come down here to the pattern utilities and resize these flowers. Now in here you can invert this pattern and make it the opposite. You can remove the pattern. You can have this pattern not be as solid. You can tone it back some with the diffuse overlay and top coat. You can come down here and shift this pattern to the side or up and down to if it's running into a seam and it doesn't quite look right for you. And then you can also do what we're going to do now, which is size these patterns. We've given you 10 sizes. So what you might want to do is come in here and say, okay, that's the larger ones are the smaller ones. So size 1 is going to be the biggest and size 10 is going to be the smallest. So let's choose something. These usually come in at 2 or 4 when they're first applied. So let's try like size 6, and it's going to get quite a bit smaller. And change that to a size 6 and see if that goes down for us. There we go. So that's a much tighter pattern if you want it. You can even take it all the way down to a 10, which will be real tiny. Let's see how that looks, which will be real tiny, or you can take it back up to 1, which is probably going to be gigantic on this dress. And that's really, really large. So it depends on what size you need it to be. And then the grain stays the same size. So it looks like real fabric. It's just your pattern is painted on it larger or smaller. So let's bring this back down to something a little more normal, like say 3. And that's it. I mean, you've basically got your dress ready to go with your accents ready to go. And it's really just that quick. Now, to take this a little bit further, what you can do is this particular pattern is not what the original pattern is. If we come back here to 4A, 4A is either a plain pattern or a colored pattern, and then you can colorize your pattern, and then you can do your utilities to adjust it however you need. So most of your work's going to happen once you pick a pattern and come through and set your base color and then adjust your base, then you'll come down here through this. So let's go through using it that way. What you're probably going to want to do is start out here and say, okay, let's go with silk again. And we'll go with a medium. Turn that on. And it's going to go back to its original gray as if we haven't done anything to it. And we'll zoom in real quick. This is how you would start from scratch and see whether or not we like the size of the grain on this pattern. And that's actually not too bad for her dress. That's actually pretty accurate. It'll read from a little farther back, so we're not going to have to adjust that at all. If you did need to do that, again, you would use these base utilities, and it would change the size of the grain of this pattern anywhere in through here. Or if you wanted it to be sheer, you could lighten it so it's almost see-through if that's what you wanted. So we're good with that. So what you want to do now is choose a base color. So let's choose, say, a base color of this pretty blue. And again, for a plain pattern, you would be done if you wanted just plain colors. Now, it's on a medium, so it's kind of a darker color. If you notice, it's a little bit darker. If you want it to go lighter, you can come back here to your silks and say, okay, I would like it to be lighter. And it will go lighter for you. And if you want it to go darker, that's the lighter. Let me turn off this yellow outline. And then come here and go darker if you wanted it to be darker, or back to medium if that's what you want. You're free to do that at any stage, whether you've got a pattern on it or not, whether you've resized it or not, or anything. All it does is go lighter or darker for you. So let's go back to that medium that we had and let that resolve for a minute. And then let's choose a different pattern. Let's come down here to our patterns and look at, say, another pattern that's similar to that. Let's put this pretty back and forth looking one here. It's kind of little fans going back and forth. Okay, so now this is a different pattern that we've put on. So that looks kind of interesting as it is, but maybe the colors aren't quite what we want. So let's come in here and say, okay, we can colorize down here on the overlay colors. These don't only work on regular plain patterns as you see them here. They actually work on the color patterns too, and they give them a kind of a color shift. So if we want this to match in a little bit to that dress, we can come and say, okay, I'd like to colorize the color pattern, and it just kind of lays over top. And it'll slightly shift that color. Now see, it's kind of a completely different look to it now, and it's kind of a tone-on-tone look. Now the pattern's too big, so let's move down to the pattern utilities and say, okay, I would like to size that pattern down some. It's really huge. So let's come over here to, like, say a size 6 and bring that pattern down and see how that looks on the dress depending on where the seams fall. And that's much better. We might like that much better, and see how that looks to us overall. And if we back out, that's actually a little bit better. We might even go up a little bit from there. So that's a way to create something very quickly and tone in the colors that you like. Now, the other thing you might want to do is, once you get it to that, you might want to change these around to match. Or if you don't like any particular color on here, feel free to come over here and change these colors. This color here, the diffuse overlay color, you can tell it changes the color of the color pattern. And then the base color obviously changes the color of the underlying fabric itself. So if you want to change that, it's real easy to do. You just click here and adjust that brighter if you like, and see what happens to that. And just go ahead and give yourself some time to play with these, and you can really change quite a bit, and it's not going to hurt anything. You can always start over. No problem at all. The other thing you can do is, if you say you don't want all this gold, the easy way to do it is to come back here to your colors folder, and at the top of that you've got a on off with the metals, and you can come in here and say I don't want any gold on, and it will turn it off for you. And then you have something like kind of completely different. You might want to take that color overlay off and let those colors pop out. The other thing you can do is change that gold to silver and see how that looks. Because like I said, for the Egyptians, supposedly the silver was more precious than gold. So you might want to try doing stuff that's not necessarily gold all the time. Try some silvers, and they have, you know, certain meanings for that. So that might be another thing you can do that makes your stuff stand out a little bit differently. So, and what you want to do with a lot of this stuff, you can see some of it is blowing out. You might want to change your lighting to adjust for your metals. That's always a difficult thing to do. So once you get everything in position, go ahead and adjust your lighting until your metals look the way you want them to look. They're doing pretty well through here, but some of this has got a little bit of a shine to it, so you may want to rotate your dome or change your lighting setup a little bit just to make everything pop out the way that you want to. So, I mean, that's pretty much it. If you follow in here, full shaders in 0, and then walk through 1, 2, 3, 4, you're going to have your base fabrics, lighter or darker, your base colors, and your size of your grain, or the sheerness of your grain, and you set up your very bottom, the underneath fabric. And then all your pattern playing comes in here for 4. You can do colors over top, you can do plain patterns over top, and let's do that real quickly. Let's go back here and remove this pattern from her dress. If you have the dress selected, let's remove that pattern, take it back to the way it was, and put it tone on tone real quickly to show you. Let's choose, let's say this one, this big kind of heart-shaped one. And they're going to come in, not like this, they're going to come in black. And that might be just what you want right there. Something real plain and simple with kind of a dark overlay pattern. But you can also step down in here into your colors in 4B and choose any color you like. You can do kind of a tone on tone if you choose a blue on blue. And that's going to give you something kind of subtle. And that's kind of a tone on tone. And again, come over here and play with these colors a little bit to see what you like. There's also a kind of a top coat color down here. So wherever you see blue, go ahead and adjust those a little bit if you like and get exactly what you want. And once you've reached that stage, you still have these gold on and off accents to go ahead and just turn them on. And you can dress up even a plain pattern just by turning on the gold. So that's really quick and easy to use. Like I said, if you want more in-depth and material zones and stuff like that, go back and take a look at the business class shaders pack. There's 2 videos there that go really in depth on how to play with these shaders, but this will get you a general starting point. And if you have any questions, let us know. Hope you enjoy it, and keep an eye out for the next pack.